Welcome to Ask Win, everyone, and I apologize from the get-go. If you hear me coughing, please don't ask. It's not allergies, and no, the kids that I work with did not give me a cold. They did not give me a January cold. I think my aide gave me this cold, so I apologize if you guys hear me coughing and hacking away as Mark is talking, but for the time being, I'm going to let Mark take it away, and I will try and mute myself so you guys don't hear me coughing. So I'm going to let Mark take it away.
Oh, well, this is Mark Schaefer. I am a educator. I teach at Rutgers University. I'm a consultant. I do marketing consulting with big companies and brands. I'm a blogger and a podcaster, and I've written 6 books on different marketing-related topics. And my newest book is called Known: How to Build and Unleash Your Personal Brand in the Digital Age. So that's a little bit about me.
And so, Mark, you are known in the digital space as a marketer. And what would be your best tip for someone, i.e. me, who's trying to get into freelance writing with a journalism degree? And what would be your best tip? Because I'm having a hard time, not to say that I can't produce books, but I'm having a hard time selling books, to be honest with you guys, because I'm noticing a trend on Amazon that every time a Dick and Harry thinks that, oh, I can publish a book, but then they don't have it edited, and then it hits number one. They publish it, and then it hits number 1 bestsellers and goes gangbusters. So for those of us who have our books edited, thank you very much, and then have a hard time selling them, what do you suggest?
Well, today, the world used to be that you would write a book, you would go to a publisher, the publisher would invest in you, they would promote it, they would advertise, they would help you build your audience, but those days are over. Unless you're a celebrity or someone that can really sell tens of thousands of books, you're not going to get any support really from any sort of traditional publisher. And I've gone away from traditional publishing, and I self-publish all of my books now. But the big mistake that I think a lot of people make is that they don't have an audience. Today, like I said, someone would invest in you in the old days, and they would help you build an audience, and no one's going to do that today. No one's going to hold your hand and, wait for you to be able to sell books. You've got to figure out how to do that yourself. And that's really what my book Known is about, is how to build a personal brand, how to build not just a social media audience, but a really actionable audience who will support you and help you achieve your goals, whatever that might be. It might be selling books. It might be raising money for a charity. It might be starting a new business. And I think that's a real key issue today. Someone who's known versus someone who isn't is always going to have a sustainable advantage.
So, okay. Now, I hate to be the devil's advocate here, but I have a big platform. I use Facebook. I am a content creator. I use Twitter more than I use Facebook because Facebook is changing its algorithms. For those of you that don't know, Facebook is doing a little dance with all of us right now by changing his algorithm. So for those of us who are pretty well known in the industry, do you still think we need an audience?
Well, how can you be well known without an audience?
Well, that's true too. For those of us who are known,
I mean, how do you define yourself as being? I mean, how do you define yourself as being well known if you don't have an audience? The audience,
a podcaster. So, can you just hold on while I finish my sentence? So you're saying audience first while we're building up the podcast or whatever we're doing.
Right. Well, I mean, I think writing a blog or creating a podcast or having a video series, those are very important things to do. You've got to do that consistently. You've got to find a way to stand out and earn an audience that is going to create a meaningful and emotional connection to you. And if you can do that over time, then they will buy services from you. And I think this is particularly important in a very competitive field like journalism or freelance writing. That's basically a commodity today. A lot of writing is going to be created by computers. And the only way we can, I think, stay relevant is to mean something to somebody. I don't know if anybody's going to fall in love with an algorithm or with a computer, but they can certainly talk about a writer that they love or a journalist that they love. And so, when I was in journalism school, we were taught not to be part of the story. We were taught not to have a personal brand. We were supposed to be blank. But I think those days have changed. We've got to take control of that. We've got to own that. Every writer has to think like a blogger today. A blogger doesn't just create content. They also promote their content. They distribute their content. They build an audience. And I think that's the key to building a brand today for a writer.
So you think that journalists should have a personal brand and not take the journalism route by not being human?
Well, I'm not sure I completely understand your question, but I think one of the trends in journalism today, it's a very significant trend, is that journalists are using social media to peel back the curtain and show what it's like to cover the story, to be where they are, to have pictures and videos. And, the New York Times is even doing 360-degree videos where you can see what it looks like all around a journalist covering a story. And I think that's part of building the bond with a journalist and, having respect for the person and what they do. So, it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for me because it goes against kind of what I was taught. But I think the journalists that will survive, the writers who will survive and thrive as things change, those will be the ones who are known.
Well, let me just ask you this. Since you went to school for journalism, and I'm going back to school for journalism. Journalism is not my original degree by any means, but I am taught in my fashion journalism degree program that to take the human emotions out of it. So when you're saying building a brand and putting that no one can trust factor behind it, Mark, that doesn't sit well with any journalist because we're taught not to put human emotions into these stories. I've story, but to play devil's advocate here, but we're taught not to put human emotions into these stories and have a biased outlook.
Well, that's not what I said. You can have a brand without creating bias in your news stories. What I said is that journalists are building their own personal brand through social media, not through the news story. They're adding extra content to show what it's like to be in the courtroom, what it's like to be on a political campaign, what it's like to be at the scene of a tragedy or an accident, and maybe, creating commentary from these situations. So I think that's, I think that's different from adding your own bias to the story. It's adding your own perspective as you're reporting and peeling back the curtains and letting people in to your process and how you're doing your job.
So you're saying to me and all of us out there to give people behind the scenes. Well, I know for a fact that New York Fashion Week is the only, they don't necessarily want all these cell phones. They do, but they don't. So how the hell are we supposed to, and I use a language because it's my podcast, how the hell are we supposed to give people behind the scenes if the behind the scenes venue doesn't want cell phone action?
Well, you can't. So you're right. I'm wrong, and my point is unimportant. Thank you for pointing it out.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome, because you can't give people behind the scenes if the venue doesn't want it. I mean, here you're saying let's build a personal brand, and I understand that, but at this
you made your point. So let's move on to the next question.
Well, I was just going to say that at the same time, even though we're all trying to build personal brands, that's
not important. You can't do that as a journalist. You just said so.
No.
So let's move on to the next question.
Well, what has been your biggest entrepreneurial moment in all of this?
Well, my biggest entrepreneurial moment was really leaving my corporate world. I worked for big companies for more than 20 years, and I was in kind of a personal and professional situation where I thought it was time to try something different and move on. So about 10 years ago, I started my own business. Made a lot of mistakes along the way, but it's worked out all right.
Well, are you still doing personal branding within your own business, or are you now teaching personal branding?
Yeah, I mean, the reason you contacted me, I suppose, is because, I'm known for something, and why would you interview me instead of somebody else? Because I'm known and my neighbor isn't. So that's why you would be talking to me instead of my neighbor. If you're known in the world, then you've got an advantage. I've been blogging for almost 10 years. I've had a podcast for almost 5 years. I've been writing books since 2010. I lecture all around the world, and that's a lot of hard work. And I didn't start out being known, but I was patient, I was consistent, I was persistent. I created stuff that people seemed to like, and now I have opportunities. So I have opportunities to be on programs. I have opportunities to contribute to, maybe a conference or something like that because I have a personal brand.
And so you were building that personal brand while writing books, I presume, while in the corporate world.
Well, it's different in the corporate world. What I found is the brand that I built in the corporate world really was meaningless. When I was in the corporate world, I, had a big title. I was traveling all around the world. I had a global team. I had 2 master's degrees. I had certificates of achievement all over my walls. And when I left and started my own business, I found none of that matters. Nobody knows, nobody cares what my title used to be, or how many people used to work for me, or how much money I made, or where I traveled. Nobody knows. The only thing that matters today is either you're known or you're not. And so in my latest book, I talk about this process. I did a lot of research. I interviewed people, almost 100 people from around the world in all kinds of different fields. And what I found is that every person in every field, in every part of the world, basically did the same 4 steps to become known, and that it is something that doesn't have to be confusing, doesn't have to be overwhelming, that it doesn't mean it's easy, but there is a very straightforward path to doing it. It is scalable and it is repeatable, and people are having success with it.
So basically, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, 2 things really. The first was this experience that I mentioned where I realized that that whatever I did in my corporate job didn't really matter anymore. I was kind of starting over. And then the other thing that happened was I do a lot of consulting, and a lot of people were coming to me and they were saying, well, I want to write a book someday. I want to teach at a university someday. I want to be invited to a board position. I want to start a speaking career. How do I do these things? And I kept giving the same answer over and over again. In this world, to be able to sell a book, or be invited to give a speech, or be invited for a board position, you have to be known. And so I struggled thinking, well, I can't really tell people how to do that. And I wondered, is there a process? And so I did a lot of research on it, and what I found is there wasn't a lot of good advice on this. It was I thought it was kind of fluffy, wasn't really realistic based on how the world works today with the internet. And so I did my own research and found that there is a path that people can follow to become known.
So, okay, what is your favorite social media tool to start building your brand on?
Well, my favorite platform is blogging. And one of the things I recommend in the book is that it is important for people to develop content consistently. And you need to consider where you fit in the world. You can't just do what everybody else is doing. You need to find a way to stand out. But you also have to look at what are you going to love to do. Because if you're not having fun, if you're not enjoying it, your audience will know. And I love to write. And so blogging is what I do most of all. I blogged twice a week without missing for almost 10 years now. And my goal is I'm never going to let my audience down. I'm going to create something that's interesting and relevant and maybe even entertaining every time I post something. And the blogging led to book opportunities. The book opportunities led to speaking opportunities. The speaking opportunities led to consulting jobs and other doors opening. So it all really gets back to the content. When I reflect on all this work I've put into blogging for all this time, I realize that really, blogging has created all these opportunities. It doesn't have to be a blog. It could be a podcast. It could be, a video series. It could even be photography that you put on Instagram or Pinterest or something like that. But you just have to pick one. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. You just have to pick one source of content, do it well, master it, patiently build an audience there, and it does take time.
So, okay, basically you're saying to all of us listening right now to this podcast, ask Lynn, be patient, slow down, and produce good content.
Well, right. I mean, on average, for the people I interviewed in my book, it took them about 2.5 years for their personal brand to really tip. I mean, whenever you're starting out, you're kind of stumbling around, trying to find your voice, trying to find your style. And then you get feedback, you get comments, you get people might mention you in tweets or on LinkedIn or something like that. And your confidence starts to grow, your voice starts to become more clear and stronger and more confident. It becomes easier, it becomes more fun, and then the benefits start to accrue. Now, what I found is that time frame for people who have read my book goes down a lot, because the people I interviewed, they might have fumbled around and stumbled around for a couple of years trying to figure things out like I did. But now I've put this path forward in the book, so it sort of reduces the learning curve somewhat. And I've had people that have been following the book and working on their brand who are having really great success, really, making great progress, even in, 4 or 5 months. So maybe it doesn't take as long if you go up that learning curve more quickly.
So basically you're saying, one, read your book to get tips out of it, and then start building your platform, and slowly but surely, and then it will climb to where you want it to. You guys, I started building my platform at age 23. I made the fatal mistake of writing a book. It shot to number 1, and then it still sells to this day, my autobiography. But I did not have the platform that I do now because of I didn't know what I was doing. Now, looking back on it, I would have built the platform first and then wrote the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the experience that you're talking about, it's the experience that a lot of people have, is that they experiment, they go out there, they try things. Maybe in your case, you put the cart before the horse a little bit, but
yep,
writing a book helped you build your audience and build your brand and become known. So it certainly wasn't a negative thing. It was just part of your journey and part of your learning experience.
So, thank you, Mark, for making me feel better about this social media thing. And so, Mark, where can people find you, and where can people find you, and where can people get a hold of you if they want to on social media? And obviously, I presume your book, Knowing, is on Amazon.
Yes. Yeah, you can find everything about me at businessesgrow.com. It's easy to remember. It's easy to find. And if you can find businessesgrow.com, then you can find my blog, my podcast, my books, and lots of other free resources for people who are interested in marketing and building a business.
Well, let's discuss the podcast a little bit. First of all, what is the name of your podcast? Second of all, where can people find it? And third of all, what is your favorite episode that you have done that all my listeners should turn into?
My podcast is called The Marketing Companion. I do it with a friend of mine, Tom Webster. He's the senior vice president of a research company, and we have a lot of fun. Tom's very, very funny. You can find the Marketing Companion podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, just about any place where people would find podcasts. It's hard for me to really choose a favorite episode because they're all so different, and we try to start each show with some sort of a little funny bit, some funny conversation, and so I don't know. They're all they're all pretty interesting in their own way. The last one that we did is pretty interesting. Tom and I talked about our careers and our career paths, how we got to where we are today, and what we're worried about for the future, how we're going to stay relevant. It's, two marketing guys talking about how they're going to stay relevant going into the future. And so I think that's something that I would appeal to a lot of people today. There's so many changes going on in our world.
Well, I believe it. I believe that social media is changing 1,000 miles a minute. And I believe from the bottom of my heart that Facebook is not going to be what it was once because of Facebook algorithm changing and Facebook liking more people than business pages. I mean, the return on investment on Facebook doesn't help. So, Mark, I know you have a couple of questions for me before I let you go. And what are they? You can ask me anything.
Who's the favorite guest you've had on your show?
Oh, geez. I have interviewed marketing experts. I have interviewed authors. I have interviewed everything under the sun. I would hate to say this, but the last interview I did about marketing was my ultimate favorite because my interviewee talks about know, like, and trust just like you did. And so both you guys are my absolute favorites because of you're saying know, like, and trust, and once you build up that rapport with people, you're perfectly fine. You're set in gold. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's really important, and it's something that a lot of people forget that we live in this world of advertising and social media, and we have the opportunity to get onto something like YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, and we think that we're broadcasting something to thousands or millions of people, but that's not what people want. Still in our hearts, we want to connect to people. We want to know them. We want to know what they stand for. We want to know how they think. I was recently over at a young lady's house, and she had bought this soap from from the local soap company. It was like, artisanal handmade soap. And I'm thinking about all these brands like Dial and Ivory, and all these soap companies, they spend so much money on advertising. And here she bought this soap from this little, unknown local company. I said, why did you buy this soap? Why do you love this brand? And she thought for a minute. She said, well, I don't know if I love the brand, but I love the hands that made it. And I think that sums up marketing in our world today. We don't want to be shouted at. We don't want to be advertised to. We don't trust brands. We don't trust businesses. We don't trust companies, but we do trust our friends. And she went on to tell me how amazing the people are that made this soap, how they're giving back to the community, how they have a sustainable product, and how, well they treat their employees and their vision for the business. She could tell me the whole story. And now she's loyal to this little soap company. She'll probably never buy something from Procter & Gamble or Unilever again. But that's the opportunity.
No, because it's all about the know, like, and trust factor. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast and my book. And for those of you who want to know more about my book, just to give you an update on that, I'm slowly but surely presenting one of my books in front of the agent. It's taking a little bit longer than expected because agents are, like most people, they want to have books sell. So I had to rework it. So now my ghostwriter is actually reworking it, and I'm in the process of meeting with new editors because I just canned my editor because of her rudeness. She had no like and trust factor ever because she was so rude to me that it was scary to the point of I fired her this morning. And so if you guys know of any editors, I have a couple meetings with editors, one today and one tomorrow actually. And tomorrow being Wednesday, you guys won't hear this until Thursday. But if you guys know any editors, please email me because I used to say my ghostwriter is perfectly fine, but editor, she is not. So that's not her specialty. So I won't ask her to be my editor. And so that's the update on my books. And as soon as I get a yes, went out to the universe. As soon as I get back to my agent, I will let you guys know that process and how, because no one ever tells you when they get to the New York Times bestseller list how that process went and how that process goes. These people automatically say I went to the New York Times bestseller list. I did it through a marketing firm, and that was about it. I wrote a good book, but it's all about the know, like, and trust factor, as Mark said. And I definitely appreciate Mark's time, and I definitely appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit behind the scenes of building a brand with Mark, and I hope you tune into his podcast, Marketing Help, and you guys can tweet him and tell him you were sent over by Ask Win. I'm sure he would love that, and I hope you guys enjoyed another episode. Thank you guys. Bye.